Hello and welcome to yet another episode of the Back to the TARDIS podcast, the podcast where we take a look at every single episode of the 2005 revival of BBC's Doctor Who. I'm Jeff.
It's your girl, Aurora.
And I'm Looming.
And this week we are discussing Series 8, Episode 5, Time Heist, by Steve Thompson and Stephen Moffat. Honestly, shoutouts to Steve Thompson. This is definitely a glow up from the last two episodes he wrote, which respectively are Curse of the Black Spot and Journey to the Center of the TARDIS.
Oh. Wow.
We love a comeback king.
Actually,
now admit it.
You know, Journey to the Center of the TARDIS, I see that. Like, visually, I see that.
Yeah. Now, admittedly, there is a Moffat credit on here, too, which means that his contributions were substantial enough that he got a credit. But it's like, wow. Golf clap. So, yeah, this one's a good old heist episode. Featuring, and honestly, I think this is really this and the next two seasons after it are really, I think, where we hit like visually peak Doctor Who, and I think this is a really good example of that.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I remember just like thinking about, these seasons look really good.
For sure.
Just like the look of the bank itself and how they do really, it feels like they do manage, like they do save budget by setting most of the stuff in the bank in the lower levels where they can just do corridors. But it works probably because you have the contextualization of like the above ground areas and then it goes down and stays down there.
Yeah, I also noticed that like there's the huge area that's like with all the pipes, and the director who did last episode does again some really good work at like using certain angles and filming through certain like parts of the set to make it very like ambient and not that you're in like some, I don't know, warehouse in Cardiff or wherever this place was. And specifically when we get to the Corridor Fest, there's a lot of like good utilization of different lighting for different characters. So even though you're obviously in the same corridor, it feels like different parts of the facility. So
yeah, the colors,
some very good minor touches there.
Like, it's not an episode you would expect to have a lot of color, but it does.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And it uses it really well.
So yeah, we immediately start out with another banter where it's like this is the same bit as last week of Clara being like, I'm interested in someone and trying to get your opinion because I'm going to be going on a date with them or something, and the Doctor just completely sandbagging the bit.
Yeah.
It's the
man.
same bit and it's still funny. It's the exact same bit.
He's a bit more calm.
Yeah.
Compared to how like absolutely manic he was last episode. But yeah, it's still a good bit. It hasn't bothered me yet. And hey, Danny did not annoy me in this episode.
Well,
in the
he's barely
screen.
in it. He's in it so little that he doesn't even have he's not even credited.
Wow.
So yeah, and then they just kind of immediately, and then I love how they literally like smash cut from like him answering the phone being like, no, it's fine, listen, no, it'll be fine, nothing's gonna happen, to immediately smash cutting to them waking up, like holding the worm, being like, what the fuck was happening?
Yeah,
that's a good cut.
It's a good moment. I think the lighting in that one really does it too. Just like,
yeah,
this is an episode where I would say lighting is used well. which is funny because we're just coming off of another episode where that's the case. But yeah, um, just it's used well in a very different way. But just like I like how it's used to emphasize contrast a lot in this one.
Mm-hmm.
Versus like in the other episode, it's used mostly for tone, but this one is used a lot for like just differentiating settings and setting up contrast between different areas.
Yeah. So in this this room, they are introduced via video recording to the architect, who's got a heavily filtered voice, and it sounds like the voice is filtered, but also it sounds like, if it is Capaldi doing it, it sounds like Capaldi doing a like bad American accent. Like,
yeah.
I feel like I can hear it underneath.
Carabraxos.
Yeah, exactly. I'm like, what? But and we are introduced to our supporting cast, Sabra, who is a shapeshifter, and Sai, who is a cyborg. And let me tell you guys, once he showed up on screen and started talking, I spent like 10 to 15 minutes trying to figure out who the fuck this dude is, because I recognize him. And then it hits me. He voices my favorite character in Final Fantasy XIV.
You're gonna be the end of me, Geoff.
Yeah, no, and there's gonna be like another guest actor who voices a fairly major character in Series 10. But in this one, it was like, oh my god, it's this guy. And it's especially weird because it's like, I know he's in Bridgerton, but I don't think I've actually like seen him in live action aside from that. So it was a real head trip hearing the voice of this character, especially because said character is the character that is the recipient of my one cringe OCX NPC ship that I go with. Yeah. So I'm like, wow. Okay.
It's your moment.
Yeah. I figured it out and just started screaming.
Speaking of Doctor Who, though, he apparently this guy, the Sai's actor, is also in Broadchurch for something. So he's
from what I understand. Yeah. And I know, again, he's in Bridgerton, obviously, and that show has a pretty decently active fan base. So yeah. So yeah.
Also, I just want to compliment this. This has nothing to do with anything. Absolutely nothing. But first, like the continuity that when the phone rings, we again get the plug for the woman in the shop.
Yep.
And then we see,
especially because it actually matters this season.
Yes, especially because it matters. And then we see the memory worms, which were first introduced for a gag. Glad they came back. And last thing that doesn't matter, I like Sabra's makeup.
Yeah.
I was too in my compet world when I was first watching this episode, and now I'm just like, okay, fuck, I need to do that to myself, please, God. End me.
Very like I just got Cyberpunk 2077, and I was like, yeah, that looks like some makeup that I could put on my character.
Yeah.
So yeah. Good bit characters for this episode.
I think they're being like, there's only a few of them and they're used really well.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's actually like a really light episode cast wise. Like, you have like a couple side characters, like you have the guy who gets like souped, and like a couple security dudes, and obviously the teller, but otherwise it's just the main four and Carabraxus. Which is interesting because you also don't think that this would necessarily be a cast light episode, but it is.
It the first episode that came to mind for the contrast is that like we can see the Doctor growing in his interactions with these two, as opposed to like the soldiers that he just like barely like kept under wraps how much he hated being with them.
Yeah.
In Into the Daleks.
Yeah.
So it's just like, it's nice to see evolution of the character. It's nice to see some characters that aren't just like, I am angsty because we're in a war and I shoot things.
Yeah.
It's good to have side characters that I like that aren't Vastra, Jenny, and Strax, because they have worn out their welcome at this point.
Yeah. And like it's also like it's a case where it's this, honestly, this isn't even something that happens that much, honestly, where I can say like, oh yeah, these random side characters have really cool designs, because these random side characters have really cool designs and look badass.
Yeah, and I think you get sort of like just enough of them that you're like, yeah, okay, I get their deal. Like, I get why they're doing this, and you don't really need to know much more about them. Yeah.
Yeah, they're not fully 3-dimensional. They're more like 2.5 dimensional.
Yeah, but also it's a 45-minute episode, so they get enough time. They get the time that they need, and then the episode moves on.
Yeah, they have enough to service the plot, the narrative, and the themes of the episode.
Yeah.
And be entertaining. So.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah. So just the and there's also obviously the main, I'm not going to say villain. I've been listening to a specific podcast, so I almost said Scrimblo. The main sort of monster. The Teller is not a Scrimblo. I'm going to say this right.
You can't skate past that. I'm not letting you skate past that.
It was just my brain autofilling. The Teller is not a Scrimblo. There is not going to be a Scrimblo Doctor Who alien for... let me take a look at an episode list here.
What are
not
the most...
in Series 8.
What are the most Scrimblo Doctor Who aliens in your opinion?
The Patang is the most Scrimblo Doctor Who alien.
The Patanga?
Yeah.
Jesus Christ.
That's a fucking
now we have to
Scrimblo.
cover it.
That's the alien from that one like Series 11 episode that just eats fucking everything.
I might not remember this episode because it's Series 11.
The episode sucks, which sucks because it's a legitimately good monster design and idea. It's just in a bad episode.
Oops.
They also have, that episode also has a pregnant man, which you could use to explore, like, I don't know, trans men.
Yeah.
Or just have a trans side character, but instead it's
bad.
like sort of a gag.
It's honestly kind of uncomfortable how kind of played for laughs it is. Then again, this is Turf Island we're talking about.
I remember that part of that episode, but I don't remember the monster in it.
Look, a pregnant man being funny, that was done in Star Trek fucking Enterprise, and it was played out in the early 2000s.
Oh no, not the Berman Hell show.
Oh yeah. And no, this is the best part. They it's treated for jokes, and this is in an era where like everybody was just like, okay, every season needs to have a social commentary episode. And they don't do it on that one.
Yeah.
So it's like, yeah, anyways, side tangent. Fuck Rick Berman.
Bitch.
All my homies hate Rick Berman.
Yeah. I would also accept the classification of the robots from Smile as Scrimblos.
They're honorary Scrimblos.
I think that the adipose are the most Scrimblo.
The adipose are Scrimblos. That's true. The adipose are Scrimblos.
And I think the Doctor tends to be a Skrunkly. So when you think about it, the show is actually about Skrunklies versus Scrimblos.
I'm glad we're settling this discourse now.
Shoutouts to Gigaboots. Okay. All right. So fuck, yeah, I just got completely sidetracked. Okay, so I believe the teller is at least 75% prosthetics, right? That's not a full CG.
It's definitely. I remember something about prosthetics.
Yeah, it's a
Like
good fucking.
you can
Yeah.
you can definitely tell like the eye movements is like.
Oh yeah, that's definitely like animatronic or prosthetic. Or
It's
something.
really
like, yeah,
good.
that shit's that shit's great.
I wouldn't be surprised if like, because obviously they're hiding a lot of that in the suit, and when they're walking away, I wouldn't be surprised, like, without the clothes at the very end, I wouldn't be surprised if that was a CG.
Yeah, but that's
I
a
think
far
that's
shot
in the
anyways.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it's like, you know, not to be like predictable and to be like, oh, this thing has more soul. But also, if this was a Marvel movie, it would have just been fully CG and it would not have looked anywhere as good. Because just the little things of it being like prosthetic and animatronic make it like way cooler.
Speaking of Marvel, this is again another like sort of side tangent that doesn't matter, but when I first remembered that this episode is called Time Heist, I remember in Avengers Endgame, that's what Ant-Man calls their time travel plan.
Yeah. Oh no,
like,
no, dude. I literally, was texting a friend of mine about the fact that this voice actor for a character that I really like in 14 was in it, and he's like, wait, like I'm not misremembering. You're talking about the one with the 12th Doctor, right? I'm not thinking of like Ant-Man, and I'm like, no, you're thinking of the one with the 12th Doctor.
Nice.
And I mean, I guess it makes sense because he, like, 12 literally goes, this isn't a bank heist, it's a time heist. He literally just says that.
Actually, he says it's a time travel heist, so he conveniently subverts it.
Oh, really? I thought he just said time heist.
He says time travel heist.
Okay, I guess I'm misremembering then. Fair enough.
Fake news, left wing destroyed.
We picked that up on that specifically because it was like, they like purposefully subverted.
They didn't actually say the thing.
No, the writer.
No
the writer
Cinema
of this
Sins
episode,
roll credits joke here.
Exactly. They saw it and was just like, fuck, I'm not getting this episode dinged.
I don't want to have to deal with obnoxious YouTube media criticism. Anyways. Let's take a look here. So yeah, just the and also like I think, and this is interesting too because it's actually a case where like despite all of that, the monster actually turns out to really not be that threat. I mean, it is threatening, but like it's not like that malicious. But the way that they like eliminate and wipe people's minds is like the most like hardcore fucked up. Like it's not a death, but incapacitation shit that we've had since like RTD. It is noticeably more like Jesus Christ.
Yeah, I remember watching that first scene with the teller. That scene is so good.
Yeah.
Like the effect, especially just something about like the like caved in head is just so.
Now, admittedly, it does kind of raise the question of how the fuck is that person still alive if their brain isn't there? But I don't know. I guess it left like the parts at the stem that control like breathing and like heart rate and shit. I don't know.
Yeah, one thing I forgot that happened like right after that happens in that scene is that the Delphox lady, she's just like, oh yeah, your next of kin will be notified and incarcerated. I'm like, Jesus Christ.
Yeah, they really sell like how fucked the capitalism is here. It's like, Jesus.
Yeah, I'm just like, I'm glad this planet is getting base delta zeroed because it fucking deserves
Yeah,
it.
what is this? Outer Worlds?
Spacer's choice. Anyways.
So yeah. Also, yeah. It's So yeah, I like also I find it funny. It's actually it kind of like it brings back, this is like, how many times is this now that they've had the fake out, like, oh no, this isn't a disintegrator, it's a teleporter. Which really, when you think about it, actually a teleporter is just a disintegrator with a step where you put them back together at the other end.
Yeah.
Look, let's not start up this Star Trek level teleport discourse again, okay? I'm fucking tired, but
what was it?
No,
It
yeah,
says McCoy doesn't like using the teleporters.
yeah. In Enterprise, that's actually a plot point that, like, this is very new technology. If this fucks up, we don't know what's happening to you.
Yeah.
You may not come out on the other side. You might die. It's very horrific. Point being, though, in regards to this episode, is I believe they pulled this trick all the way back.
It's in series one. Yeah, it is. It's the Rose fake out. Yeah.
I do like the sort of error in, I don't know if this was production or an error in direction, but it's supposed to be painless, and then when Sai uses it, he has like a scream of terror.
Okay, maybe
like,
he's just yelling because he's expecting it to hurt, and then it doesn't.
Yeah, that's what I would think would be the case.
It's still, I don't know. It was a little funny to me. It doesn't actually bother me, but I was just like, oh, okay, man, you're a little extra. I respect it. I do want to give thanks to Moffat, or maybe this is the other writer's influence. Apologies, I forget the name. Yeah, perhaps it's Stephen Thompson's influence, but I am grateful that though this character literally girl bosses too close to the sun, I am thankful she's not horny while doing it. I take pleasure, I bless the small victories, ladies and gentlemen, and non-binary folks. I bless the small victories. So, yeah, for all the I don't know, build up to, I don't know, like this character literally like starts the story off technically by calling the doctor. She's really more like just a symbol of like the person who has everything is like the least rich. I don't know. It's a very, you could even tie this back into some like Christian theological stuff. I'm not wrong though in this instance. I will admit though it's somewhat of a stretch, but I'm sticking my flag in this ground. So there's that, and you know, being filled with regret, redemption. There's a, I don't know where I was going with this. Basically, I think Carabraxos, even though she's basically not a character, she, unlike the 2.5 dimensional side characters, she's pretty much like 1.5 dimensional.
Anyways, no, like they do kind of run out of time with Madame Carabraxos, but also it's not like I really need them to like really heavily characterize the evil capitalist, other than being like, yes, this evil capitalist like had a revelation on their deathbed, which, yeah, all right, sure.
I think it's like,
this isn't a Danny Pink situation where it's like detrimental to things moving forward. It's just like, okay, here's your antagonist, here you go, and now she's gone.
Yeah, I think like I don't mind her character. Like I think that arc is fine, because it's not like, oh, you know, because she like did this one thing and the rest is okay. It's just like, okay, she had one thing in specific she knew she could fix, and it's like,
Yeah. Yeah, I don't even know. I don't know if she says it directly, but it very much feels like I mean, I can't undo all the awful shit I did, but I can at least make it so I didn't make this species extinct.
You could actually tie parallels. Obviously, I don't think the episode does this, but in a meta context, you could put this character up against the Doctor, someone who's very old, has a lot of regrets. I mean, he can see the writing on the wall of, like, where she's going to end up. It's like, you're going to call me. I know it.
Yeah.
And the episode actually does a lot of subtle things in moving the Doctor along this am I a good man arc. I mean, Sabra tells him to his face as he hands her the instrument for her death, supposedly, that you're a good man. I mean, that's a great little moment right there. And then Sai's subsequent reaction and 12's little moment of, like, you know, if you need a shoulder to cry on later, that's great. But until then, what you need is me. Like, again, it's I don't know. This episode has a lot of little moments like that. The pacing is surprisingly competent. You know, we start off right with the action. Nothing really feels too like it outstays its welcome, or it moves by too quickly. Again, you could say that the sort of, like, anti-climax of finding Carabraxis is a 45-minute syndrome problem. But then again, as you said, Geoff, we don't need that much of her, so it's... I don't know, I'd call the pacing a win for this episode.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's like... Yeah, no, it like... When I say it runs up against, like, 45-minute syndrome, in this case, it's not even really, like, a particularly bad, like, oh, this feels like they missed some things because of 45-minute syndrome. It's just, no, they didn't really go as far into depth as maybe they could have because of, like, 45-minute syndrome, but whatever. It works fine.
You know, like,
an absence of a positive as opposed to a negative. Sorry, go on.
Yeah, like, I think, you know, maybe we could have gotten a bit more of her, or, like, seeing her being, like, evil or whatever, just to, like, contrast with her, like, calling him, but I think it's fine. You know, what I do really like is, like, the Doctor, he doesn't have his memories back yet at that point. It's just sort of like he's piecing it together still, and I kind of like that aspect, that he just, like, it's not until after it's all said and done that he's like, okay, I get what's going on here now fully. But he got just enough that he knew what he needed to do.
Yeah. So yeah. And yeah, the resolution is they all... Oh, I have to say, the one thing, like, I don't necessarily think the idea itself is bad, but the way that it's revealed feels a little hokey, of the Doctor realizing that, like, I'm the architect because I hate the architect and there's nobody in this world I hate more than me. And it's like... Bro, I understand the feeling, but also the way that got, like, dropped kind of sucks.
That felt like some XXX Tentacion 14-year-old Tumblr angst slam poetry right there.
r/I'm 14 and this is very deep.
Yeah, exactly.
I think we don't mind it just because, like, same bro.
Yeah, like, no, I know where you're coming from, bro, but, like, Jesus, don't be that explicit about it, SMH.
Yeah, again,
fucking throw it behind metaphors and, like, self-deprecating humor like the rest of us. God.
Honestly, I think that revelation could have either not been a thing, or I don't know, like, put back to when the teller, like, gives him his memories back, because it's such a non-reveal that it's basically...
You could just also, like, really, like... You could just say that the architect was Carabraxis,
Yeah, that
from the future. Like, there isn't really any part of the episode where the Doctor being the architect really means much of anything.
Also, wait, did they
Yeah.
ever explain how they
'Cause, like,
actually
there's not-
got like the things into the bank beforehand?
No. They just kind of went, hey man, we're not gonna talk about it if you don't.
That's another thing. Like the guy that's Sabra uses to like break into the vault in the first place. The random insert older white guy template here.
Yeah.
That they just like
White guy spotted.
Yeah, they like find this guy, and it's like it could have been like, oh, he's like a very rich conservationist, and he'll help this group because he didn't realize that there was an endangered species in the bay. Like, no, it's just we found this guy. He's rich. He's white. Probably checks out. Let's go.
Let's go. Yeah. I mean, it is what it is. It works fine, I think, overall. But yeah. So, also, I will say it is kind of like something about the resolution of like there being like the flare. Yeah, I guess the stuff revolving around the resolution that's like what's like the pressing danger right now feels kind of weak in comparison, but I think the rest of it is good enough that it doesn't really matter that much to me.
I like the flare aspect to it. Like I
It's
think
like, yeah, this works.
I think the idea of a time heist is good. I do wish they had explained how they got the things in there, but
Yeah. Yeah, especially given that it's supposed to be like, yo, we have all this security. How the well, I mean, I guess he could. Well, no, actually, that doesn't answer my question, because if he could just land the TARDIS in there, why couldn't he just land the TARDIS inside the vault itself?
I think maybe like
Because then it wouldn't be cool, Jeff.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, but like,
maybe they just
Bro.
like sent someone there when the bank was being built.
maybe. I don't know. But yeah. And yeah, and yeah, it is really good to have like this fucking pants shitting, like terrifying being, like actually have it just be like, no, it's just like a tool that's being used by like shitty capitalism. Like, it's not actually like a bad creature. It is just being forced to do these things.
Yeah, I like that resolution.
It feels very classic Doctor Who, but it also feels like it works very well in an episode that is, when you think about it, about like exploitative capitalism.
Yeah, I think this
Like,
is one of the first
literally what the
episodes that
episode is
really
about.
defines 12 as being the most base Doctor.
Yeah. Yeah.
While I was watching this episode, I had the thought of like, man, imagine if this episode like resolved its way the way
The way Kerblam does it?
yeah.
Oh no.
Yeah.
Oh,
I was just like,
no.
oh no. Yeah.
I don't know how Kerblam resolves.
Oh, you're
Kerblam is the one where they're like, no, Space Amazon isn't the bad guy.
we won't do it justice. We'll just. I know Jeff doesn't want to cover it.
Kerblam might.
I feel,
Kerblam might be one of the episodes that's so bad that we have to talk about it.
yeah.
Like, I feel
exactly.
like when we get to Series 11, it's just going to be a hypercut of every single time Series 11 had a questionable political moral.
Either that or like the 3 good spots. Just a
Yeah,
best and worst
that
of.
and demons.
Yeah. Yeah, there's good politics, there's good themes in this episode. The brain is mush. Just like the teller. But
Oh no, they got you.
yeah, I'm so guilty. don't get too turned on by that. Wow. Okay, I found it. I found the line. I'm a professional.
There you go.
Okay. The political messages aren't like super overt, but that's fine. They're there, they're present, they're cogent, they're good. In my mind, this episode is as fun as it is narratively. It's also like pretty good character-wise. Like I think this is another brick in the house that 12 is slowly building of being like sure of himself as a doctor, as maybe a man who isn't good but is trying to be good or is trying to be better. And yeah, I think unlike Into the Dalek, there's I think this has a better focus on that, and it's an evolution of that. So yeah, I think yeah, pretty based.
Yeah. Anyways, so yeah, I think that's about it for me. I'm ready to move on to ratings.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, no, it's another banger mid-season 8 episode. Like it's really nice. You know, just it's really nice to have a season once again where we're not complaining about the companion arc or the episodes being mid, and it's nice to just have fun episodes again without like the fact that like even like last time around most of the time the really good episodes were overshadowed by being tied to a shitty companion arc. It's just nice to have some good episodes again. A+.
Yeah, this is a really good episode. Really fun time. Starts off with the action right away. Doesn't really let up. Good character moments from both the side characters, the Doctor, and the companion Clara. Again, getting more sort of shades of gray and nuance into Clara's relationship with 12, which is, you know, already so different from 11. That's nice. The set is nice. The direction is nice. Lighting, again, very nice. Creature design, poggers.
Very poggers.
I don't know. Political themes, not super hammered in, but also they're there and you can't deny them, so that's fun. Yeah, runs into a little bit of like, well, how did the time heist sort of get set up? Why does the Doctor being the architect, you know, matter? Like, why do we need that to be a reveal? There's some sort of like back end like building blocks to the episode that you could, you know, really question or interrogate. But it's just such a fun ride. It's such a good mid-season episode, mid-series episode. I'm gonna give this a light 9 out of 10.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think like it's just a very solid sort of standalone episode. You know, I would go so far as to call it like at this point like a pretty classic episode. Yeah, like when I think of season 8, this is one of the episodes I really think like, yeah, this is like Capaldi doing his thing, being a good doctor.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just a really tightly written episode. You know, I do think there's some like loose ends or like weird things that could have been cleaned up a bit better, but like overall it's fine. Yeah, I would say 9 out of 10.
Yeah. All right. So next week, unfortunately next week we have to talk about The Caretaker, the last episode, with Ansem Seeker of Darkness having a writer credit on it. But yeah, that's what we're covering next time. Until then, you can follow the podcast on Twitter at B2TARDISPod and support us on Patreon for a number of benefits, such as early access to episodes, the ability to listen in live to episodes being recorded, and potentially even the ability to guest star upon an episode of your choosing. I'm Jeff. You can follow me on Twitter at WheatleyDL.
I would make out with my own clone. You can follow me at of mice and femmes on the twitter.com.
Yeah. We will see you all next week.
Breathe. It's okay.